Step outside.
Hello, Yate, Anotro, all of you. Thank you very much for being with us this evening. Welcome to the Indigenous Ways Wisdom Circle. Let's take a deep breath. We are here tonight. We are breathing, we are alive, and we have choices. We'd like to start this evening off by thanking the traditional owners and caretakers and ancestors of these lands, Oga Poge Owinge, also known as Santa Fe. We are all grateful to reside here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. This evening, we have a very, very special guest that I have seen around Santa Fe in places like the gym. I have seen Oriana on places like trails and festivals and selling art and going to parades. And she always has these beautiful young children with her, absolutely gorgeous. Tonight we have Oriana Lee, who identifies as a queer interdisciplinary artist of African descent. What does that mean? Well, we're going to hear all about that pretty soon. Currently, Oriana lives in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and she was brought up in the southern state of Tennessee. Lee's artistic lens is primarily one of Southern American Blackness. Let's get that around our heads. Wow. Often fused with aspects of traditional African culture through patterns, symbols, and storytelling. Lee's contemporary art practice includes important, recycled, upcycled, installation art, music, literature, performance, and circus arts. And we are going to talk about all of this evening. So thank you very much, Oriana, for joining Indigenous Ways on many levels. Being Indigenous yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe share some of the salient features of your upbringing and what has impacted your walk.
Wow. Yes. Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited and just grateful to be here. And first, wanting to just give honor to my ancestors who are with me always and are with us all in these ways that we are speaking today about. And I'm just a human first. I'd like to think that I'm a spiritual being having human experience. So much to speak on. Oriana means golden one. It also means joy, and then Lee means poet. And so my grandparents named me, and they named me appropriately. The first skill that I knew that I had artistically was writing, and it was poetry. So I feel like I came into this world in a way where I was known and understood and kind of accepted off top and was kind of ushered into the skills that I needed in order to be who I've become. I do have 5 children, 1 daughter and 4 sons to follow, and they range from 25 to 15. I've been so grateful to be able to homeschool them. This is, well, I just ended my 21st homeschool year, and my baby decided to go to an art school this year. So it's my first child to actually go to a school that's outside of the home, and he's a break dancer and b-boy. So he wanted to explore his dance a little bit more extensively. So that's pretty exciting, getting to do something new and getting to parent and teacher now in a different way, having always been their primary educator. So that's been exciting to just engage. And like was mentioned, I'm from Tennessee, born in Nashville. I spent some time in Pennsylvania in my formative years, but then I went back to Tennessee and pretty much lived there until I came to Santa Fe. I went from Nashville to Memphis and was in Memphis last. And then in this wild kind of entrapment kind of way, I thought I was on my way to a different place. And almost 9 years later, I've been in Santa Fe since. So the land called me, I like to say, the mountain claimed me. Specifically, it was that mountain in Taos, that powerful mountain. And just so honored to be here and to be in this place where I feel like I can be unapologetically myself and where I can do the work that I'm called to do. I have spent most of my professional and career life in music, and also I educated to be a teacher in undergrad. So I mainly went into using that for my children. And then I went to grad school to become a counselor therapist, a marriage and family therapist, and ended up using that work for life coaching. And I've been a life coach for the last 10 years. I work with individuals, but I also work with groups and organizations, companies, facilitate. I do all kinds of things around wellness. And so over the last couple of years, I've put a lot more of my art forward, and doing visual art has just kind of become a thing that's taken over more than vocal arts, which is what I've done most of my life. I'm an MC, a rapper, in the vein of hip hop. But this visual arts has come out of the hip hop scope and lens as well, but it's kind of come forward to where now it's being included with my wellness work, and it's becoming my primary career choice at this time. So for the last 3 years, I ran a social circus organization here. I was co-director with a couple of other wonderful beings. And just at the top of the summer, I left to go full-time wellness and art. So doing new things in that way, flying in kind of by the seat of my pants, as they say, trying to figure out how wellness and art will be primary and forward in all the things that I do. But that's just kind of a general description of who I am.
Wow, again, I'm going to take a few breaths there. I have a whole slurry of questions for you. I hope we can get through them all tonight. Well, let me tell you, that is really, really, I don't want to use any kind of cliches like what people say. I want to just say that you are on a very intentional walk. So my first question tonight is, children, you say 5, and I'm here in a 10-year span, 15 to 25.
Yes.
How did that happen? Was that planned, or did you just happen to get, I mean, how did that, and then what about this, let's go from that into the homeschooling. How did all that happen? So let's just take a few minutes to hear how that's going on, because there seems to be more and more of that going on, particularly since COVID.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, homeschooling really took off, but we'll get to that. So I got married young. I married my college sweetheart, and I was like 21, 22. And he was interested in having children right off. I can't say I gave a lot of thought to being a mom before I became a mom. I did have the pleasure of kind of helping raise my younger sisters. I have 2 younger sisters. And so I got to spend a lot of time taking care of them when I was younger. And I feel like that was kind of preparing me for what I didn't know I was going to be doing. So when I started having children, and as I mentioned, I had my daughter first, it just felt really natural, even though I don't think that I gave it a lot of thought and hadn't spent like my whole childhood dreaming of having a family or anything like that. It was just meant for me. And once I started doing that full time, because I spent time with my daughter the first couple of years of her life and didn't do anything but just parent her. I was fortunate to be able to do that. I realized that it really was something that I really valued and enjoyed being able to participate in this lifetime. So from there, the others that were meant to be here found their way and they came forward. And then right after my baby was born, who is now 15, my partner and I at that time split up. So I became a single mother, and mostly exclusively single. He was dealing with many things in his life where he just wasn't able to really be present much. So I had to go from this life of, this kind of standard, the man in this situation was mostly holding down his career in a way, and I was assisting him, but mostly being mom and home educating my youth. And at that time, things shifted where I had to become the full, financial and economic structure in the home as well. So it's kind of how I started doing a lot of the things that I'm doing now. One of the reasons I went to grad school was so that I could stay at home with my children and learn something new, a new skill that would help me to be able to take care of them. So there was even a period where we all lived on campus, which was really fun times. And it really went well along with me homeschooling them, being on a college campus and having access to all different kinds of, mediums of things, the library, different events and activities that wouldn't necessarily be just in our normal walk of life. allowed me to really be able to explore the homeschooling in a way that I didn't know I would. I had originally planned to home educate them just through elementary school. And even though I had a secondary certification in English, I still didn't feel like I could teach them on the other level in the other subjects that I wasn't certified in. But what I experienced is that once they got to what would be a sixth grade level and age level, so to speak, they were advanced in their education because it's just easier. You know, I'm their only teacher and it's just me and them to focus. So they didn't have the distractions that oftentimes hold youth back, being in a classroom of, you know, oftentimes 30 these days or more. And so they got the one-on-one focus that allowed them to move at their own pace. And so I ended up having to kind of just make a commitment out of what was happening. It was going to be the best for them to stay at home at that point and for me to continue to put their education first. And so that's what I did. And so I graduated my fourth born just last May. And I thought that this baby, I call him a baby, he's no baby at 15, but my baby child, I thought that I was going to be graduating him this year. And so I was planning to kind of wrap up my homeschool journey. And I did wrap it up. But as I mentioned, it was in a different way. He decided he really wasn't ready to graduate, even though he had the scholastic piece down. He hadn't had the social experience that he wanted. And also, again, being able to go to a school where he could explore his arts a little bit more too. He gave me this big proposal, sat me down and talked to me about why it would make sense for him to continue to pursue his education in this different way. And that's what we did. But one of the reasons I homeschooled was really, you know, it's just kind of understanding what colonialism has done in this country, and especially to people of African descent. And I just really didn't feel comfortable sending my youth into a school system that really wasn't there to support them. And that oftentimes, you know, there's this pipeline to prison thing that happens with boys, they say, at third grade, and especially in Black communities, it's just a normal thing that it's understood that if a student, and particularly a male boy student at that time, as they would identify them as, isn't doing well, then they already just go ahead and plan for a bed for them in prison. They already say that they're already on the track to go to jail. There's no way they're going to rehabilitate them after third grade if they don't like school. And I just didn't feel good about that. I didn't feel good about being in a place, I was in Nashville originally, and that's kind of one of the places where the civil rights movement really kicked off. And, you know, knowing the things that had taken place there and the ways in which people still weren't really being treated equal and people of African descent were really still being oppressed, I just didn't feel good about it. So I took the high honor of knowing that I had carried these wonderful beings and that maybe we were just supposed to spend our life together in all the ways possible. And that's what I committed to.
Oh my gosh, there's all kinds of songs ringing in my ears right now, and it goes all the way back to Bo Hopkins, Furry Lewis, all the way up into some of the indigenous, you know, drum circles and ceremonial songs and the chant, all that stuff. So my next question I wanted to ask you is about identity and culture. How much does that play a role in your yourself? Because as I have learned, self first, and then the love for others gets to happen. So coming into this world with your DNA, with your history, with the post-colonial structures and hierarchies and patriarchies and all this other stuff, how much does all this play a role into you with your art, with your music, with your life, and then to your children?
Yeah, it's very much at the center of everything I do. I feel like while my grandparents mostly raised me, there, you know, was much time I spent with my mom, and I learned from her as well about just what it meant to be Black, which was just kind of a thing that was really happening in the 70s, where people of African descent were learning the reclaim, you know, of being African and what that meant and how powerful that was and how that means we're indigenous to the planet and how that's just really something that has been used against us because it is really something that is powerful and that we should be centered in. And so I feel like early she kind of taught me to pay attention to that. But my grandmother and my uncle, which is my mom's oldest brother, taught me some of the things about the Cherokee or Salagi ways. And so I started to learn about that maybe, I don't know, when I was in high school and wanted to explore more. But as I've mentioned before in many other formats, because of the Trail of Tears, there's this thing that has happened in the South where people who come from these indigenous ways and origins don't always know so much about themselves, right? We know what our heritage is and maybe what we're tied to in certain ways, but it's not like the culture is anywhere before us or easily accessible at all. So that was a challenge, and it's something I really have had to work to teach myself. I also have Moorish ancestry, so that's another area where I learned to explore. And once I learned to explore those areas, I just started teaching my children the things that I've learned and trying to put them in as many environments as possible that would support the full of their heritage.
Talk about breaking stereotypes down. Crash that wall right down, didn't you? And you are, and that is so cool because, you know, I like seeing people, BIPOC, you know, people getting away from the stereotypes and doing something different with all that. So I imagine with all of this experience you've had individually, collectively, and as a mother and a teacher, that you say you've done all these disciplines and learning and degree, and then now you're a life coach. How did all of that happen, and what does that look like? Why did you decide to go into being a life coach, and what is being a life coach? Yeah, can you educate us a little bit about it?
Yes, I
I've heard that
love
term
that
thrown around
question.
a lot, but it's like life coach, I kind of get it, but can you tell me more?
Yes, absolutely. So I think I was maybe close to 30, and I had kind of like a nervous breakdown. I had I think it was my third child. I didn't know what was going on. Postpartum wasn't really being talked about so much yet, but that's exactly what I was going through. I just didn't really know it. And I went through a whole bunch of changes around emotions and childhood traumas and all kinds of things that were just coming up, and I didn't really know how to deal with them. And I was referred by my midwife at the time to go see a therapist. And in the community I come from, that's just not something you really do. It's kind of called telling your business. You don't tell people outside your house your business. It's disrespectful to your elders to do it. And I learned through this experience of having a therapist that it wasn't really disrespectful, and it was actually healing. And it was not only healing for me, but the biggest thing I took from it was that we can all heal ourselves, right? I had been dealing with so many of these different trauma pieces in my life, and they always seemed so forward, and I didn't know that I could get past them. And once I met with the therapist and started to learn coping skills and things like that, I started realizing, like, wow, a lot of us have the ability to do these things for ourselves. We just need to learn the coping skills. You know, it's not something that we're taught, while it's probably something we should be taught in kindergarten. But it's not something that we're taught so much about, how to be emotionally well. So out of having a really wonderful therapist, it made me want to go into the field. And literally, it was just that one person being professional, but also very loving and caring with me in a way I don't think I had ever experienced, that made me want to show up in that way for others. So I went into the field of life coaching at first because I didn't really like the rigidity of therapy. After I had trained to be a therapist and counselor, there's just so many ethics and things that seem to be anti my natural human way, is probably the best way I can put it. You know, there's a lot of clinical ways that don't allow me to be able to be fully present and human, I felt. So I chose life coaching because I felt like it would assist me in that. So originally I was generally life coaching in a way that was just helping people, walking with people and helping them to discover their own truth, discover their own selves and the things about themselves that will make them their best selves. But over the 10 years, I've really modified more to really focusing on well-being. And it is definitely a part of life coaching, but the well-being part seems to be the more forward part that helps us to really be who we need to be as humans, like focusing on breath, you know, like meditating, or honoring nature in a way that it gives back to us in order to be able to regulate our systems and our nervous systems and all kinds of things like that, that are kind of normal and natural. A lot of things I think many of us knew as children, but we didn't know how to name it as anything. And so I think I like to now work around wellness and well-being, because it's something, again, that each one of us that's a human, we have to have this kind of wellness about ourselves in order to be our best selves. And I'll use that phrase a lot because it's very important to me. And our best selves, what that means also is in each moment, right? It's knowing that I think a difference in life coaching and therapy, I felt like being trained as a therapist, that therapy always had me teaching people to be healed, like that healing was a final place. And I think that in life coaching, one thing that I can impart to people is that healing is a journey. And I don't think you ever are healed in a way of something's just always over or done, right? You can think that you've gotten past something. You can do work with a therapist or do self-help work and think you're past something. And then there's that one trigger, right? And then you're like, I thought I did the work around that. And here I am upset again, or whatever the reactions are from things like that.
Right.
Yeah.
So with this life coach work that you do you bring your art into that? And as soon as that, tell us about your art. What types of genres do you engage?
Yes, more than ever, I do use my art in my life coaching. I started out by doing vision boarding, and which is a form of collaging more or less around what you would want to see or what one would want to see for their life. And so that's how I think I first started incorporating art. Now I incorporate all kinds of different visual mediums, but we haven't really talked about circus arts, and which is another art that I like to incorporate in my life coaching or well-being coaching. I've developed a practice called mindful juggling that I've learned is really helpful in so many different ways, from helping people with mobility issues, be able to learn to remobilize certain parts of the body in a gentle way, focus, and also de-stressing. So being able to focus on an object, or like one ball or two balls or something like that outside of oneself while we're talking about really deep and maybe traumatic issues, take the focus off in a way that allows it to become outward. And so I've really enjoyed being able to incorporate that. And that's a different kind of art that people don't really think about that would be in like a therapy or a life coaching, but it really, practical wise, it really does go well.
That is so cool. Are you going to be able to share some information with people tonight on maybe some resources through you, with you, or if maybe you're too full, you can send people in directions that they need to go, because I think that is really important at this time with all the unknowns that take people into clarity of vision for staying grounded to self, or just really getting lost in it all and just feeling like empty and running in a lot of fear that really is a non-entity because it doesn't have any substance, doesn't have any basis. It's got a lot of stories, a lot of conditioning, a lot of historical trauma, but it guides people in a way that is not conducive to their own manifesting for their own, who, like you said, who really are we? And who are you, and how can you get on your path so you can get and be all that you are to ultimately be of service, because that's what it comes down to.
Yes, and capitalism makes it challenging to even investigate those kinds of things about ourselves. Like, think about the single mom who has to work just to put food on the table. She doesn't have time to stop and meditate. She doesn't have time to think about what's going on with her feelings and emotions. Sometimes she may just be acting out, you know? And so it's like these ways in which we're living now that is focused on so much outward, you know, and again, capitalism, money, and all these other entities, it's not for us to think about those things. We're really supposed to rely on medication, and that's it, right? We're supposed to get sick, say we're sick, go to a doctor who prescribes us something, and then again, buy into the system that allows us to take medicine, not speaking against it, because, you know, there's sometimes we need medication in order to help us in the ways in which we're healing. And it's forward in this way of not allowing these natural practices and healing ways that we have to come first. And sometimes, you know, you can breathe over popping a pill and it can make a difference. Not always, but sometimes.
Yeah, and you know, capitalism cannot operate and be successful with the basis of some form of free labor or very low paying wages and stuff like that. So like you said, to the single mother who has to not just work one job, but two jobs, but three jobs. And then what about all the kids? What they got to do? They get off to grandparents and families and aunties, or just stay in the streets and learn how to play ball themselves on the streets. And that doesn't always turn out very well. So is there any way you can do like a really quick vocal a cappella song of your choice? Just give us something, because like one of your poems and put it into your genre of style.
I wasn't prepared for that.
Just right off the cuff, if you'd like to talk about it.
Yeah, maybe I can think of a few lines. Let's see. What divides us also unites us strong. A single race, can we all just get along? Quarter century since Rodney King wrong. Attention should be on peace, unity, having fun.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about you being a vocalist. How did all that happen, and where you at with that, and where do you feel it's going?
Yep, I feel like I've been a rapper since I was 10 years old. I got introduced to hip hop really early in my life when I was living in Pennsylvania, and I knew it was for me. The resonance of the music was one thing, and the culture, the art, the dancing. But really, the principles and the tenets of hip hop is what I love the most. And I just said peace, love, unity, and having fun. I feel like hip hop came to save the world in that way. And hip hop, of course, is not what we hear on the radio, and it's not necessarily what people call hip hop anymore, but those tenets must be leading for it to be hip hop. And again, that's something that each of us can, I think, apply to our lives and learn from. I still do music now. I mostly do music for fun. I was working with record labels and people in the industry many, many years ago, and I did that for about 20 years. And then I completely walked away from the industry at a point, thinking I would never turn back. And it just wasn't meant to be that way. So slowly but surely, I started doing music again, but I am able to really focus on doing it for fun. So the last record that I made was called 1010. I did an art exhibit last year through Vital Spaces here in Santa Fe. And it was my first solo exhibition. And I also made a record called 1010, and it was released on 1010. And that was the name of the show. But I got to make that record with my oldest son. And over the last few years, he's dedicated his life to music and decided that that's his career choice as well. And his father is also a rapper MC. And so we made that record together, and it was just us on the mic, freestyling, having so much fun. He would put on a beat and we would just go. And it was just the best thing. It took me back to just the early days of loving hip hop just for the fun of it, loving the music and not really having to worry about a check, so to speak, or all those things that come along with the pressure. And that's the last record that I got to do. So I'm still listening to that, even though it's almost a year later. And right now I'm working on a record for my new exhibition. I have an art exhibition. This one is 1111, and it'll be opening on November 11th. And then I'll have a new record for that.
You are a busy woman. Gosh, now I feel normal because I'm pretty busy myself. So you mentioned circus earlier. Why is the circus important, and why is the circus important to you?
Oh, great question. I think it depends on what kind of circus you're talking about. I happen to come from social circus, which means we're always putting social justice forward. That's not what most people know traditional circus to be. When I was a kid, Barnum and Bailey and Ringling Brothers, they didn't have a social aspect. It was elephants and tigers and all of that, you know, and fire eaters. And that was all fun and great. And I really loved and adored that kind of circus. But when I came to Santa Fe, I learned that circus kind of can have a different face. And so the reason circus is so important to me, this social circus specifically, is the chance to do social justice through everything that we do there. So social justice is in the classes, social justice is in the shows, the theatrical piece, social justice is in the protest. And it's so much about what makes this kind of social circus work. Why it's important to me, I used the phrase earlier about being unapologetic with myself, and it's something that's very important to me. It's something that I've tried to kind of curate over a lifetime, and it's not always so easy, right? We learn to code switch in all different kinds of ways where we're not always showing up as unapologetically ourselves. But I find that circus allows for that. People would, I guess, traditionally use the word freaks for people in circus. And what that means to me is just those of us who don't go along with all of the social norms. We don't always go along with all of the constructs and standards. We have our own ways of wanting to present ourselves in this world that doesn't necessarily fit in a box. And so that's kind of what it really means to me, and why circus became such an important thing in my life was for that reason. I didn't realize that my oldest son, the same one I just did this record with, is who led me into circus. When he graduated at high school at 15, he told me he wanted to do circus arts, and I was baffled because I thought you just jump on the back of a train and run away with the circus. I didn't know you could go to school for circus. And so in trying to find someone, a place for him to go to school, I found this organization here in Santa Fe, Washington, New Mexico, and he started doing circus there. And one day he invited me just to kind of hang out with him while he was doing a certification. And I hung upside down for the first time since I was like 9. And I was like 40 at the time. And I just had this rush of just joy come back to me. And I just kept wondering, like, why did I stop doing this? And I continued to pursue it. And from there, I just really never left. I just love that childlike play piece that I think that as adults we're taught to not do, right? It's not being grown up to play. And in circus, play is forward.
Wow, that just reminds me of a question that I've been wanting to ask a lot of different people of different generations. And, you know, I like to be in my childness. And when I say childness, it's very different than childish. Childness means being able to be on an airplane and looking out that little window and seeing all those fluffy little clouds that look like whipped cream that you can jump in and play in. And maybe stepping back and looking at all these images. I'm making surrealist images and seeing the horses and the dragons and just looking out the window and being, wow, I'm in a plane, man. You know, that's the childness that I love to
Yes.
be in, but I love to be a wise elder too at the same time, to know when to
Yes.
play and when to put on that grown-up hat. So
Yes.
question to you is about the Gen Z, since we've been talking about that lately. I've been hearing a lot of buzz talk about the different generations, starting with the 1925 to 45, the silent crew, and then the baby boomers, and then from there it goes to on and on and on. And right now we're in Gen Z. So with the Gen Z, people have been talking about how the Gen Z is affected with some of us, our generation, the generation before. So how is your kids now compared to, say, your grandparents? Like with some of that colonial trauma, does any of that affect them now, especially since they've been homeschooled with you and you've talked about culture and being able to fertilize and marinate in their own life choices and having all of that. Can you talk a little bit about that? I hear people talking about that all the time, and I'm going, you know, I want to ask more people. We got a couple of nieces on right now that are Gen Zers, so I'm going to ask them this question in another time. So
I feel like one of the biggest things that's different, I guess, in my generation, I guess I would be Gen X, between me and them, is that we've built a bridge in a different way. I feel like when I was younger and I was around elders, and I grew up in church, Baptist church to be specific, so there were lots of elders doing elder kinds of things. And we were meant to respect the elders. There was kind of a be seen and not heard kind of thing. And there wasn't a bridge. There wasn't really a bridge in relationship. I feel like, I don't know if it's because of hip hop. I'd like to attribute some of it to hip hop, and that this is a culture that has now translated also to the Gen Zs. There's a bridge, and there's more of a bridge in the way that we relate socially. Because of that, I think that this generation is a lot more naturally themselves. Of course, not all, but speaking to my children and their friends and just a lot of the youth that I work with, I find that they kick down a lot of the constructs that we have a hard time letting go of. Some of the things we've been taught in ways that we carry that we don't necessarily like, that are not of us culturally, but we just do it because of where we were born or the world that we live in. They kick those things down. So even down to recognizing that I was queer, before I had language for that, I didn't really know what to call myself for many years. I've gone through so many different phases of I'm this and I'm that. But I feel like it was this generation that helped me to land it queer, because I find that it's something that they know how to carry proudly, and don't hold back in the same way that my generation did, or the generations before. They had to hide some of these ways of just how we are naturally, that weren't socially accepted. Pronouns is another one of those things. I didn't know anything about pronouns being anything that I could even consider not being what I was told I was, until I had children, who then were coming up in a generation where they're just like, that's dumb. Basically, it's how they kind of looked at it, like these labels have been put on you all, mom, and you're kind of stuck in it because someone told you this. Where they think critically and like I said, more broad in a different way, that was not a question for them. So being able to even come to identify in a way where I do identify as open to any and all pronouns, that's not language I had before I had children and before I got to see them walking in the world where they were self-identifying. So those are just two simple examples socially of where I've seen a big change and how my own children have helped me change myself.
That's so beautiful. Thank you for bringing that up. That was what I was going to ask you next. So, yeah, I've got a good friend. She's Indigenous. She's young. She's millennial, I think just on the cusp of Gen Z and millennial. She has 5 kids and she calls herself a queer mom, and she's got a boyfriend, and they're big time in love, but he has no problem with her identifying as that. And she has 2 children who identify as queer, and she supports them. And she loves them with all her heart. And she makes sure that nobody messes with them. But I just think it's really beautiful that she's fluid with her self-identification.
Yes.
I think that's really different. And I think that people from my generation and on back, we've always had to make, to be codependent on what people expect us to talk about and what not to talk about. And later put in situations where these people are all coming together because what we're all about, and nobody's making any excuses for nobody. It doesn't matter who's in that room sitting around that table. This is who we are, and this is what we're going to talk about. And I got to tell you, it's kind of uncomfortable for me, but I'm just going, you know what? Blessings, prayers, let's move with this, because this is now, this is not then, and we are going forward. We can't go back. The gates have been opened.
Yes.
People are free.
Yes.
We can't lock everybody out. We can't put people back in boxes. So because our time is moving on, and I want to get some people in to say hi to you. I want to ask you one last question. Our theme in this time, in this season, in this series, at this moment is, what is your definition of thriving in purpose? And I want to thank you for all your wonderful, wonderful answers. And you're just an amazing human being.
Thank you. I feel honored. Thriving and purpose. Thriving, I really feel like it's something that we're all doing all the time. I feel like if you open your eyes and dare to get out of bed, you're thriving. Me personally. Some people like to attach all these big places of success to what it means to thrive, or something that someone else can identify in you. It's really something you can only identify in yourself. And again, to just be daring and brave enough to continue to go out into the world, that to me is thriving at the most basic level. You can always build on that and probably thrive more and higher in different ways, but that's very simply seems to be thriving as I would define it. Purpose, that's challenging to sum up in just a word, because I think a purpose can change and you can have many purposes, so to speak. What I would say to that though is that I feel like whatever one considers their purpose has to be intuitively from them. It's not something somebody else can give you, right? So mom or dad raises you and they say, I want you to be a doctor, or I want you to be a lawyer, or I want you to be a writer, or whatever ambitions they have for us. That's not something someone else can see outside of us. That's something we can only know for ourselves. And I think a lot of the time we have a hard time following our purpose because it is just us listening to us. We're blocking out all the advice. We're blocking out everyone else's opinion. We're having to block out what anyone else thinks we should be doing and completely follow our gut into what, our future holds in that way.
That is so beautiful. That brings me to my purpose, to drop walls of separation. It has always been that, and it is going to continue to be that. And whatever I have to get involved with to do that, I'm there. I'm in. Count on me. I will be there, and I am dependable. So thank you so much, Oriana, for all your beautiful, beautiful wisdom that you shared with our beautiful, beautiful audience that's going to be archived into our beautiful, beautiful future, 7 generations onward. As long as humanity exists, you will be in Indigenous Ways' website for your great, 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 great grandchildren. And I'm going to pass it over to Elena now. Thank you.
Wado.
Right on. Thanks so much, Oriana. Really wonderful to have you. Look, for those that are here beaming in through our social media, this is Oriana's website, so be sure to check it out, and that's orianalee.love. Absolutely perfect. A big shout out and thank you. How did we meet Oriana? She's one of the vendors at our Indigenous Ways festival. So she's done the whole series. And I just Googled her and up popped her website. And if you haven't seen it, go to it, because not only what she shared with us this evening, thank you for the hard knocks, because without that, you would not be doing what you're doing. and also sharing with us tonight. Like, just hearing you, I feel on fire. I mean, if I was any better, I'd be pretty bloody dangerous at the moment. So thank you for sharing your wisdom. And what I'm going to do is just go through what's coming up. So last Wednesday, we had our Indigenous Festival for August. These are some of the snippets that were there. As you know, we've got amazing artisans, including the beautiful Oriana herself. We had amazing artists. Now, if you beamed in through our live hybrid section, our apologies. We ended up with thunderstorms and lightning, which at 6 o'clock when Keith Sokola went to come on, we ended up shutting down because of the lightning strikes. So our apologies to you now, because our broadcasting wasn't crash hot, but you'll be able to see some of that very soon, what you may have missed out on our archives. But anyway, a lot of amazing things happened, including Keith going to the community room and having a very intimate session with those that hung around, as well as all the other performers as well. So that's what has been happening. And if you haven't already, write this date down, September the 21st, 4 through to 7. That is our last and our 5th pop-up Indigenous Ways Festival. We started them in May, going all the way through to September. Oriana talked about the circusry, where she is the theatrical director at Wise Falls. We're very, very blessed because Wise Falls will also be one of the many nonprofits that will be coming and blessing us, as well as Earth Seeds, which is the Black Arts Alliance that will also be blessing us, as well as many artisans, food vendors. It's from 4 to 5 is activities and workshops, and from 5 to 7 it's main shop. We will be featuring local artists, G Precious, hip hop, rap, and also Interstate. So make sure you save that date. And then next Wednesday, we have the one and only Brooke Smiley, who's this extraordinary Osage native artist who is huge. She's into movement, and she does body and earth artists. So she collaborates with a lot of spaces of remembering ritual and artificial facts and telling stories of the land and its people. So make sure to join us, same time, same channel, here next week with the beautiful Brooke. And, if you're able to donate, please do to Indigenous Ways. Either go to our website, IndigenousWays.org, or you can snail mail to our address. We've got Vimo and also PayPal. But, these series, as Tash said, we started them April the 1st, 2020, supporting our Indigenous, Native American, LGBTQIA. We've had over 175 artists each week through this platform. We have the beautiful Oriana Lee. You'll be able to see her incredible, if you needed to rewind with the amazing wisdom that she's shared. She'll be available on our archives in the next couple of days. And already there's over 175 artists that are there, deaf and hard of hearing as well, presenters. So please be sure to check that out at our website. This is all possible because of our incredible sponsors. This time round, want to give a big shout out to, I'm doing this so I can remember, to the National Endowments of the Arts, the City of Santa Fe Arts and Culture Department, the New Mexico Humanities Council, as well as the National Endowments for Humanities. So that is why we're able to do this with the wonderful support of individual donors, as well as our sponsors, to make this happen. And on that note, it's that time again when we invite all of you if you want to start your videos, and so you can share in the circle some things that might have sparked, or you might have a question for Oriana that you want to share, or just some comment or some check-in. Christina, great to see you. Glad you made it back safely. The beautiful Amber. If you're in our social media, if you want to type
for you,
something in
Amber.
there, and then Tash, before I go over to you, we've got Mary Sue Elder Gilbert beaming in from Florida from our social media. She says, thank you, Oriana. Also, Janie Immerman beaming in from New York on our social media sites. She's saying, thank you, Oriana, for an inspirational evening. And Tash, I'm going to zap it over to you, mate.
Everybody, we got a new cat named Aroha Yaje. And Aroha is Maori for love, and Yaje is Navajo for little. So this cat, Aroha Yaje, just got picked up from the Navajo Nation, from a Navajo deaf family, Keanu. So Aroha, say hello to your new family. She just came from the vet, so she got all her shots, and I'll hear all about it. Okay, who wants to go first, or should I call on Jitter first?
No pressure, Jitter.
Hey guys.
Hey, Jits, I can see your mouth moving.
Hey, just unmute.
Oh, I
That's
see.
it.
Okay. Hi guys. I'm so happy and grateful that I got to see Oriana speak. You are such a big role model for me, and I really look up to you, and thank you for mirroring and for leading your life in such a beautiful way. And for being an amazing creator, and for teaching the world about what self-love looks like, and what just being an awesome mom and an awesome community member. Like I don't think Santa Fe would be the same without you. So yeah, I'm just really, really grateful to be here. And I love when I get to see amazing, powerful women collaborate. And yeah, you're just a total badass. And I'm so proud of you and the work that you do and who you are as a human. So thank you guys.
Thank you, Jitter. I love you so much. And thanks for being my reflection.
Awesome. Okay, does anybody want to raise their hand, or? All right, Carlin, what's up?
I agree with Julia. You're a total badass to have raised 5 children. That's amazing. I have to let you know too, I have an adopted daughter in Kansas City, and she was able to tune in for a short time. She handles a similar program in Kansas City, and I said, you have got to see Oriana Lee Love. And so she tuned in for a short time. It was kind of impromptu, but according to the text she has sent me, she was super, super impressed, and I am as well. I hope to meet you in person someday.
Thank you so much.
Right on. Thanks for that, Carlin. Jennifer, I can see you there. It's so great to see you. Have you got any words of wisdom, or just want to say hi to Oriana? It's great to see you, mate.
Yes. Hi, Ariana. Thank you so
Hi,
much. Right now I'm calling in from Baltimore, Maryland, and I'm about to move to Spokane, Washington, and I'm just happy to be here and share this space with you and everyone.
Thank you so much. Glad you're here.
Very cool. All right, let's go to Christine McDewitt from Ohio, Columbus. She just came from Santa Fe, New Mexico with Donna. Hey, Christine.
I'm propping myself up since we just drove home for 2.5 days. And I had to work today.
Wow.
Anyway, I was really excited to hear what you had to say today. I really appreciate your sharing. And it was wonderful to meet you in person at the festival.
Yes.
And I look forward to seeing you on here more often.
Yes, thank you. Great to see y'all again.
And thank you for your messages. I looked you up online and I've already subscribed to your YouTube affirmations. I think I got the title wrong, but
Mantra
you know what I
Monday.
mean?
Yes.
So I'm in there.
Awesome.
All right, Arletta, how are you, Arletta? Hi, Arletta.
Hi there. Yes, I'm doing all right.
Good to see you, Arletta.
Super. Thanks for that, Orletta. It's beautiful to see you. Thanks for beaming in, and I'm glad you've got a great reception from the Navajo Nation. While we're doing that, I want to give a shout out to Tasha's mum who is here, Kathy, Terry, Harry, who's also beaming in. And with that, Amber, who's been really instrumental with all our wonderful vendors at the Indigenous Ways Festival. Amber, it's great to see you. Have you got any wonderful words for Oriana?
Hi, thank you, Oriana. I'm all about this mobility issues juggling talking thing. So, and also, I've been very loudly out as queer for about 50 years. And so I'm, you know, what you were talking about, the younger generation, it's like, this is what we prayed for. This is what we prayed for, was people saying, no, I don't think I like the boxes. Let's, you know, could we just be vague about everything? Because I'm a person. Do you like me or not? You know, and what a blessing that people are finding language and dropping language about that stuff. So thank you for your participation. And also as an educator, yeah, I hear you. I hear you about the school system and what it makes us do. I lived in it for 30 years and it was tough to teach the truth and do what I was paid to do. So thank you so much for everything.
Yes, thank you, Amber.
I'll
Good to
see
see
you
you.
soon.
Yes.
Thanks so much for that, Amber. Hey, Peggy, do you have any words or say hi or anything like that?
Yes, thank you for inviting me for this, because sometimes I forget on Wednesday evenings that there's an opportunity to tune in. I really enjoyed meeting you, Oriana, and hearing about what you do so close to home. I live just outside of Santa Fe, so I'm going to be paying more attention to everything that you do. And I've been playing around with vision boards and visioning that way. And I'm finding it as, like you described it, as a wonderful way to merge art with futuring and thinking and visioning about what's in store for me. I'm about to retire. So I'm like at the precipice of this really new version of myself. And so I'm very excited and I love that work. And I loved what you said about it and how it inspired you. So thank you. And hello, Arletta.
Beautiful. Thanks so much for that, Peggy. Really wonderful to see you. Anyway,
let's go on to, let's hear from Donna. Hey, Donna, thank you for coming to Santa Fe. I see you're back home safely. Yay. Thank you for helping us with the Indigenous Ways Festival and Indian Market.
Yeah, it was a good 2.5 day drive back. I see you have a little magical kitty there who, you know, that would have just been one more thing with all those people. So probably would have been too much for the cat.
Oh, that's why we postponed it. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to thank you for inviting us into your home and hosting us so amazingly. I mean, we had like some rock star experiences the whole week. It was really great. I got to meet Oriana on Wednesday and didn't get to help her put up her pop-up because she got it up all by herself. They sent me down to help and she didn't need it.
I appreciate the offer.
Yeah. So I want to say that Columbus is actually, we made the national news tonight because our teachers are on strike in Columbus here. And they're actually striking for things for the students, not really things for themselves. They're trying to get, they have new air conditioning systems that don't work. So it's too hot and it's moldy and this and that. And I drove by a couple different schools today because there's one down the street from our house. I could hear cars honking all day every time they'd go by, and you'd hear cheers. They're all wearing red shirts, and they were going in a circle, striking in front of the Spanish immersion school here, and a bunch of other schools too. So finally the school board went back to the table because the school board walked out. It was like horrible. So I totally appreciate your ability to teach 5 children and your own children, give them their education, because lots of my friends are teachers, and it's a hard profession. It's a valuable one, and we don't value it nearly enough. So thank you for all your work in that regard, and your continuing work to educate folks.
Thank you, Donna.
Thanks so much for that, Donna. And then Pelican.
I wanted to say hi, and I got on tonight because I wanted to hear Oriana, because she may not remember, but I helped her set up her pop-up several months ago, and I wanted to find out what she was up to.
Awesome.
Yeah, so then that I did. And so I'm really happy to be here. And I have to say, I identify as a lesbian. Maybe I'm a boomer and I'm from that generation, but I identify as a lesbian because that's what I am.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for that, Pelican. And I want to thank each and every one of you for your time, blessing us in the circle. You know, if you haven't checked out Oriana, please do. It's orianalee.love. She is a motivational speaker. As someone, Christine said, has signed up to her motivational, inspirational speaks that she posts out weekly. So be sure to do that. Support her in any way. She's got all this wonderful merchandise, books. You've had a tiny little slither of her tonight. There is more. So please go to the website, oriana.lee. And you'll see a lot of us, you know, Christine and Donna, we met at a festival. They came across the country and meeting us. We've also, all of our shows through the virtual events, including this, the Wisdom Circle, have had ASL interpreters. So I want to thank Mariah, who's interpreting at the moment, and also Zol. If you live in Santa Fe, New Mexico, our last Indigenous Ways Festival on September the 21st. One of the interpreters is going to be Zol, who comes in from Colorado. She has been very instrumental through the Indigenous Ways virtual events, I think since August 2020. So we will finally get to see her 3D next month. So we're really excited about that. You know, this is all about community, and some of the words that Oriana has shared just through the challenges in life, but the thriving and the purpose of her finding her true compass to be able to share that wholeheartedly. That's what community building is about. That is what all these circles are about. We had some sisters drive ultimately 6 days, return. They just got back to Ohio, and they wanted to be here and supporting all of us. This is what it's about. Oriana has, if you can't see her in person in next month, she also has a number of other where she'll be having her booth at many things. So please check out her booth. But this is what it is all about. It takes one, it takes many, you know, like it takes a village to raise a kid. Well, it takes all of us in that intentional change for the better. And when I look through here, when I'm looking at the screen, it's women. It's woman, it's woman, it's woman. So I want to thank each and every one of you for your time and blessing us. Now, if you're watching this in the near future through the archives, thank you. But in saying that, let's give a big shout out and a hoo-ha for the one and only Oriana Lee. And we look forward to seeing you next week. Take it easy, everyone. Love and blessing.
Touch the earth.